Welcome to Salute Your Sports Week 7. Kamenechev, Tom Castleman, Drew Brackett back after a bye week. We've got another very exciting show today, guys. NFL, college football. We got college basketball, NBA, what we're thankful for in the sports world, and plenty more. You guys excited?
We got a holiday show going. Got a holiday show going this week. I like the theme of talking about something we're thankful for within the context of the sporting world. Should be really exciting and a lot of fun.
Yeah, and good to be back after the bye week, and we'll see what we can talk about on this Thanksgiving week.
Yeah, and to mention on that note, Drew, last week you missed out. Tom Castleman told us how to make a good Thanksgiving turkey, so maybe he'll recap that for you later in the show.
No, I said I'm going to try. This is going to be my first try. I have nothing to offer except perhaps afterwards.
Okay.
A bit of advice if I haven't burned the place down.
We'll reconvene. Anywho, to football. Speaking of burning the place down, kind of the big sort of burning news in the NFL the last couple weeks. Tom and I talked about it on the show last week. Drew Brees is down. He's got like 11 bruises. He's bruised all over his ribs. We expected Jameis Winston to get the start last week because he started, or rather went into the game after Brees got hurt. Instead, Taysom Hill, the quarterback from BYU, who's kind of the football utility man, receiver, quarterback, running back, special teams, all of it. And Taysom Hill got the start and got the win. What did you guys think about Taysom Hill? And do you think that he could be the Saints starter going forward?
I thought he was good enough to beat the Atlanta Falcons defense, if that's saying anything. One of the prompts that you put in the rundown is he good enough to be a quarterback on a playoff team? Well, the Saints right now are on line to be in the playoffs, and Taysom Hill is starting quarterback for them. I think coming in limited sample size, I think that he can be perfectly effective for them. Let's kind of see how he does against some better competition. Atlanta Falcons has one of the worst defenses in the NFL. He looked great running the football, but he's also somebody who in 5 years at BYU suffered, I think, like 3 season-ending injuries. He puts himself on the line to get beat up a lot, so we don't know how sustainable this is. And as far as like sample sizes go and everything, he's a 30-year-old quarterback in the NFL, and this is his first chance at really being a starting quarterback. There's a reason for that. That means that, yes, there's some talent there, but it's not necessarily starting quarterback talent. At least that's what I'm reading from, you have Sean Payton, who's a great coach. It's a little bit telling that it's taken him this long to get some regular reps.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And you also look at Michael Thomas. He had 9 catches in this game for 104 yards. I mean, he's one of the best receivers in the game, so that also helps to have him on your team. But the Saints did a good job of running the ball, 168 yards. But once again, I agree with Tom. You're playing the Falcons, so, I guess it's a wait and see what happens in their next few games.
Yeah, we're actually all kind of on the same page. This doesn't happen that often, but I think he did pretty good. So the numbers, which I didn't mention off the top, 18 of 23, 233 passing yards, 10 carries, 51 yards, 2 touchdown runs. So 284 total yards, 2 total touchdowns, no interceptions. Those are numbers you'll take. Of course, it was a home game in the Dome against a bad Falcons defense. Certainly a good time for him to get that start. I will add, though, he actually had a deep ball touchdown to Emmanuel Sanders called back because of a flag, which would have won me my fantasy football matchup. My team is in Tom's league is not doing so well. Drew and I are fighting it out for the last playoff spot. I would have won. Actually, I had not 1, but 2 touchdowns called back because of penalty. Brandon Cooks of the Houston Texans got a touchdown called back because of a penalty. So the penalty flags weren't kind to me, but his numbers would have looked a little better if he had gotten that long touchdown pass. He also had another drop, actually, by Michael Thomas in the game. I caught most of the game. So pretty good start for him. I think it's interesting because with most teams, he probably wouldn't get a chance. He was more of a running quarterback, wasn't necessarily even a great passer at BYU. like Zach Wilson is right now. But I think there's something to be said about him getting an opportunity. So they signed him to a 2-year deal last year, so he's got this year and one more to go. And they knew that this could be Breeze's last season. They brought Winston in. And I heard an interview with Sean Payton. I don't know if you guys saw this, but apparently a few weeks ago they had asked him, what would you do if Drew Brees goes down? And he said, if it's mid-game, I'm going to put Jameis Winston in. But if it's starting before the week, I'm likely to put Taysom Hill in. So this is kind of always kind of the plan. It wasn't a surprise for him. Obviously, he kind of said that Hill does so many different things, and they don't want to take him out, mid-game without a game plan type situation. I don't know. I'm very split on it. I mean, I think, is he good enough to win a Super Bowl? I don't think so. Even on a good enough team for the Saints. That's what gets tricky for a team like the Saints. Their end goal is to win the Super Bowl as opposed to not just make the playoffs. I think he's good enough to make the playoffs with the Saints. I think, but if he were on an average team, would he lead them to the playoffs? I don't think so. But here's what the Saints have. They have a chance to wait and see because Breeze is out for a few weeks and they got one more year on him and he should get enough reps in the next year and a half. Give him a chance. Don't necessarily draft the quarterback next year. Give him a chance down the stretch while Breeze is out and then see what you see and then maybe give him a chance next year and then decide. The real interesting question mark is, though, Jameis Winston, I believe, also on a 1-year deal. So they're completely bypassing Winston, who many thought could be their future quarterback. Is it almost worth throwing Winston out there at some point to see who does better in a full game between them? Because they're probably going to never have Jameis Winston again after this year if things are looking like this.
That's a really interesting way of putting it. I think there's a couple different kind of things to pick at there. Number one, I actually think that the Saints would and should draft a quarterback next year. Even if you're just using Taysom Hill as a bridge quarterback, I think it can be capable for that. I think that with a whole offseason, you can scheme an offense to suit his strengths a little bit better. He's not necessarily a great passer, but you can make kind of a running quarterback offense work for a little bit, especially if you have the talent on the line like the Saints do. They have a pretty strong offensive line, and they have a talented running back. They have talented receivers in Michael Thomas, Alvin Kamara, that can really kind of take the pressure off of whoever the quarterback is. As far as Jameis Winston goes, there could be a little bit of contractual intrigue going on here. From what I know of his contract, he actually has some escalators based on reps and playing time. So part of it could also be that, hey, if we don't play Jameis Winston, we don't have to pay him. I think it's something around like $1.5 million or something like that he could earn if he were playing. So that could be a role in it too. In a year of COVID where there's not really fans in the stands, every little bit of money counts for these ownership groups. And I think if they're saying, hey, if we're kind of equal with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill, let's go for the guy to whom we don't actually have to pay a little bit of extra money to get that out of them, especially with good results.
Tom, You know what I call you? Mr. Contract. That's your new nickname. Okay. He loves the contract.
But isn't that the part of sports, the contracts?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah. Drew, what do you think about
playing time?
Jameis Winston getting a chance, or are you sticking with Taysom Hill until Drew Brees comes back, assuming he does?
Well, I mean, I guess we'll see, how the LASIK surgery turned out for Jameis Winston because, of course, last year that guy threw so many interceptions. And, I think it kind of depends on the game plan, right? I mean, Taysom Hill, he's going to take off. Jameis Winston, you could say he can scramble and take off, but you don't want that to be your first option with him. I think Winston should be more of a pocket passer. Not that he's better at it than Hill, but I think it schematically breaks down just a little differently, and it'll just come down to what does Sean Payton want.
And it's interesting. I think Taysom Hill fits their offense a little bit better because Tom and I talked about this last week. Since 2018, Drew Brees has thrown the shortest average yards per pass. Jameis Winston has thrown the deepest average yards per pass in the whole league. Certainly with Taysom Hill, they expect more of the short offense, run the ball, and they can run kind of option, use Kamara with all sorts of different things. But I don't know. I can see what you're saying, Tom, but I'll be completely honest with you. $1 million or whatever it is isn't the end of, the biggest thing. I think the Saints really are looking at it, who gives us the best chance to win, and I think Sean Payton just loves Taysom Hill, all the little tricky things he can do with him, and he wants someone who can take care of the ball. And, maybe they'll do a 30 for 30 on ESPN one day, Jameis Winston, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions, and they'll interview Sean Payton, and he'll say, yeah, I didn't want the 30 interceptions.
For sure, yeah. And just like to speak really quickly on that contract provision, I don't think it's necessarily a limiting factor of we're going to put ourselves at a competitive disadvantage to save a few bucks. I think it's definitely, go with Taysom Hill, and as long as he's not messing it up, you have no reason to go to Jameis Winston unless there's injury. So I think that's kind of what's playing into it a little bit there. And I guess we're also kind of seeing that Sean Payton hasn't just been a bunch of bluster about Taysom Hill. I mean, a lot of people roll their eyes when he says, he can be a special quarterback. We're going to find out. I have my doubts given his age. I think he's a fairly limited ceiling as far as what he can do, but definitely can get him out of a pinch in a short week.
Yeah, and again, a pretty easy schedule the next few weeks. They have the Falcons again, I think the Broncos. We had it pulled up last week. So we'll see. I think he does have a little bit of a short leash. If he struggles, we might see Winston. But for now, sounds like we're all on the same page. Stick with Taysom Hill until he messes up. Speaking of Taysom Hill, kind of a running quarterback who maybe isn't a prototypical passer. We've got a similar guy over in Baltimore. The Ravens, second to last in the NFL in passing yards. As I continue to rail on Lamar Jackson and his inability to beat you with the pass. Ravens and Steelers, Thanksgiving Thursday. The rematch from earlier this season. I was the only one on the show to pick Pittsburgh to beat Baltimore. Pittsburgh and Baltimore, round 2. Steelers 10-0. Ravens 6-4. I believe if Pittsburgh wins this game, they clinch the division title after 11 games because they would have a tiebreaker. Guys, does Pittsburgh win again, or can Baltimore pull out what is really kind of becoming a needed win for them because all of a sudden they're in the wild card hunt?
Well, you have to go with the Steelers here because the Ravens, their whole running back crew has COVID or they're on the COVID list, so they're likely to miss the game. And without your running game, you're in Pittsburgh, you're not going to win this game. Yeah, I think it's the Steelers. How close? Not sure. I guess it's going to come down to who is playing at running back for the Ravens. Is it going to be Gus Edwards? Or is J.K. Dobbins and the other guy, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but are they going to be back?
They're not going to be back. If I read, and this could be wrong, but what I read online is that they have to have like a 5-day recovery period or something, and they had those tests Monday. So I believe, now this article may be wrong, but according to what I read, they are ruled out, both Dobbins and Mark Ingram, their top 2 running backs, both ruled out for the Thanksgiving game. So I don't think they'll be playing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm very high on Dobbins, and so without him and Mark Ingram, man, I mean, Gus Edwards is okay. He might be a good popular fantasy pickup this week. But I just don't see the Ravens winning this game, barring a tough game from Big Ben maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Steelers have done nothing to show that they shouldn't be winning this game at home. I think that the one thing that we haven't really touched on is that this game might not even be played on Thursday night. There are a lot more players than just J.K. Dobbins and Mark Ingram that are out on the COVID list right now. I'm not really sure what the NFL is going to be doing with this big picture. Do they just kind of hold their nose and say, sorry, Baltimore, you're going to have to take one for us because we're not leaving this 8:20 Eastern time primetime spot on Thanksgiving. You can't really take another a set of games and move those teams up in the week. You can move back, but it's really hard to move up and fill that spot.
No, they're not moving up. It'll be a matter of whether they Mr. or not to Sunday.
Right. No, you know me, Mr. Cynical. It's all about the money. They're going. Whether or not they should play the game, I don't think so, given all the players that are going to be out. But I think they're definitely going to keep the game on because, like I said, they don't want to give up that money. Steelers, even if all the Baltimore Ravens are healthy along the offensive front, they've just shown that their offense is not clicking this year the way it was last year. Mark Ingram last week, 2 yards on 2 carries. J.K. Dobbins finally getting a bigger portion of the workload. It's a little bit of a mystery why they didn't go to, I think he was like the second or third running back drafted this past year, why they didn't go to him a little bit sooner. He's clearly
they wanted him to learn the offense, probably.
Probably. They've been dedicated to having a pretty good running attack, but for whatever reason, if it's the play calling, I think Lamar Jackson has taken a step back. He hasn't shown any sort of progression over the past couple of weeks. I mean, Marquise Brown, the ball hits you in the hands. You can't be chirping one week that you need more targets, and then when you're past the sticks, let a ball hit you in the hands and nobody is around you on defense. Just something's really, really broken in Baltimore right now. There's no way that they're going to fit it.
Lamar Jackson overrated train that I've been eating, and all aboard. Hop on
like you said that
overrated train with me, Tom. You can hop on. Drew can still be on the Jackson.
I don't think that he is overrated. I mean, you can't have the.
Well, they rated him like the number 1 player in the NFL going into this season.
Nobody said he was number 1 player, and if they did,
the NFL
top fantasy, but I don't think so.
No, they had NFL top 100 rankings. They ranked Jackson, I believe, like number 2. Actually, I think Mahomes was like 4. Maybe Aaron Donald was 1.
Well, I mean, like, based on what he did last year, I absolutely understand why people would have him that high. I thought that he was going to do really, really well. But, like, what we're seeing the difference between, Taysom Hill running quarterback, but he has a great running back. He has a great receiver to throw to. I think Lamar Jackson definitely could work to make his teammates better, but his teammates also aren't picking him up.
Was last week, actually. Now, his tight end, I believe, was his leading pass catcher, but his leading receiver was Dez Bryant, who's now on the Ravens, former Cowboy.
For how many years?
Yes, he's their leading receiver, which shows you how poor their receiving core is. What do you think about Dez Bryant beating their leading receiver in Baltimore, Drew?
I mean, it was good to see him back out there for the Ravens. I think he had one false start in the game, and it came at a really bad time, if I remember correctly. But, yeah, it's good to see him back out there playing football. I've been a Dez Bryant guy, and we all know he caught the ball against the Packers several years ago. But good to see him back out there.
So I think part of the reason why I don't know. To me, I agree with what Tom said earlier. I think no matter what, Pittsburgh is the favorite. The only thing, even if the Ravens are healthy, the only thing that would keep me from picking from them picking against them, which I won't until they lose. I'm not going to pick against them. I picked for them all year. I think Drew's picked against them a couple times against the Titans and the Ravens. But anywho,
yeah, probably, absolutely,
probably. But the thing about the Steelers is they're a very good team. They're the top defense in the NFL. But it's almost mind-boggling how they're 10-0 because they're extremely clutch. If you look at their offense has actually been yards-wise has been pretty mediocre. 18th in pass yards, 22nd in rush yards, and 21st in total yards. Yet they're still somehow the 4th highest scoring offense in the NFL. So they've been extremely clutch. And when they don't go on one of those like 80-yard drives where they settle for a field goal. They go on an 80-yard drive and pound the ball in the end zone. So they've been incredibly clutch. Again, I think Lamar Jackson had everything go right last year. You got to keep in mind the NFL is a 16-game season. You have those type of seasons where everything goes right and some seasons where everything goes wrong. I think last season was everything goes right type deal. I think teams have figured him out now. And I think part of the problem is he himself. He's not running the ball as much. I think he's almost trying to prove to people that he can pass the ball, which clearly he can't do. So he should focus on running. Yes, he needs better targets. Baltimore should get him better targets. We can revisit this argument, but I don't consider him a top 10 quarterback in the league.
We're picking games. What are we doing talking about top 10 quarterbacks for now? Lamar Jackson's out here catching strays from Skip Etchev over here.
I
love it, Skip Etchev. I love it.
Let's pick another game before I rip Lamar Jackson too much. Titans and Colts, 7-3 showdown. This likely decides the division title. Actually, if the Colts win, they would have the head-to-head tiebreaker. If Tennessee wins, though, they're well on their way to having the better divisional tiebreaker. So this game really could decide the division. Both teams coming off huge wins. The Colts beating the Packers in overtime, despite like 6 straight offensive holdings at the end of regulation, which was crazy.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Meanwhile, we talked about Baltimore. Well, they just lost at home. Tennessee picking up the road win. They struggled the last few weeks. Huge win for them. Colts, Titans. Who you got in this one?
This is a tough one, but a fun one for me. I think I would probably go with Colts. What they're kind of showing to me a little bit recently is that Phillip Rivers, at least for the time being, isn't going to be costing them games with turnovers, and that their defense is for real. One against the Titans on the road on Thursday Night Football. It'll be close, but I expect them to do it again with a really good defensive team like this. The numbers are going to look pretty close as far as the scoreboard goes, but I'm not going to have nearly as much confidence as, against this defense than I would against other defenses if it comes down to a last-minute drive in the fourth quarter type of thing. I like the Colts winning this one and stealing a healthy lead on the divisional race.
Yeah, this is a total toss-up for me. You have, of course, it's in Indianapolis, which does play a factor for me. But Phillip Rivers really playing well, and you mentioned the last game, a good win against the Packers. The Titans was a nice win against the Ravens. If the Colts can contain Derrick Henry, I think they have a solid chance to win this one. And, of course, as you mentioned, Tom, Phillip Rivers can't turn over the ball, can't make those turnovers that he's not known, but, he has come to do. But I'll pick the Colts in a tight one.
Yeah, I think to me the difference in this is look at the amount of points each team has scored this season. The Titans have scored 279, the Colts 276. So pretty close on offense. Points allowed, 259 for Tennessee, just 208 for the Colts. I think the Colts have a better overall team, and they've got a stronger defense. I believe they held the Titans to 0 points in the second half a couple weeks ago when they matched up, and they held Aaron Rodgers to 3 points in the second half and overtime. They did give up 28 the first half, but it's Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, so they
bound to happen.
And I think actually a lot of times Derrick Henry does great in the second half when teams get worn down, but we've seen the Indianapolis defense has shown their ability not to wear down in the second half. In fact, they're improving in the second half. So I think we're all kind of on the same page. Certainly a Tennessee win wouldn't surprise me, but I'm going to go with the Colts. Better defense at home, and they've proven to be clutch in second halves of games. Probably the last game we'll pick is probably the biggest one in the NFL. Kind of got a lot of eyeballs. I actually don't think it's going to be particularly close. But the Chiefs, who come off a 4-point win against the Raiders late in the game, Mahomes to Kelsey for the win, and the Buccaneers, who lose again on primetime to the Rams. Tom Brady driving down for the game-tying field goal, throws an interception. He looks to be very inconsistent to me. We'll get more into that later. Chiefs at Bucks. Who you got?
Well, I think I know what the storyline's going to be. It's going to be, the old ushering in the new type of thing. Tom Brady, handing the baton of, the conversation of greatest football player of all time over to Patrick Mahomes. I agree with the comment. I don't think it's necessarily going to be that close of a game either. I think it could be. So the way that the Raiders have played the Chiefs the past couple of weeks, I think those have been the two tightest games that the Kansas City Chiefs have been in. And what's a common theme? They try to bully you up front, and they try to pound you with the run game. Buccaneers are really, really good on defense, and with Ronald Jones and Leonard Fournette, they're going to try to pound you on offense as well with that run game. So I definitely think that there is a variance in the there's a variance in how wide the score is going to be in the game. I think the Chiefs do have enough talent to win because we saw Patrick Mahomes did on a game-winning drive. He's incredible with what he's able to do. I think minus 3.5. I think that they can win by more than a field goal, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm going to pick Chiefs over the Bucs to keep it short, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were a close one either. It just depends on if Tampa Bay is able to get to get themselves up for this game in a bigger way than they necessarily would. I don't know why they wouldn't for a primetime game last week, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's a huge game in the NFL, and I don't know how it's not the Sunday night game. I guess the Bears-Packers is the rivalry game. Yeah. So we'll be forced to watch the Bears offense once again.
Ugly.
But, yeah, this is a heck of a game. And you mentioned ushering in the new quarterback against Tom Brady, of course, a GOAT, and the Chiefs 5-0 on the road, so they've been a good road team this season, and of course
they're on the road Chiefs last season too, by the way, by record.
Yeah, so they're the Chiefs. We know that. We know what they bring to the table. The Bucs just 3-2 at home, so you have to wonder if they can correct things after this past week against the Rams. I think if it were me, it's going to be a high-scoring game. I don't know if it'll be like that Rams-Chiefs game last year or the year before that, but this game could be a shootout between Mr. Patrick Mahomes and Mr. Tom Brady.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. It'll be, whether it's close or not, really depends on what Tom Brady we see. I think with age, he's had some great games this season. Against the Panthers, against the Raiders. And then he's had some bad games against the Saints, against the Rams, against the Bears. He's been very up and down. If you look at his game logs, he's had, some multiple interception games like he did against the Rams this last week, like he did against the Saints. Then he's had some great games, against the Raiders, the Panthers, where he throws like 3-4 touchdowns, no picks. And I saw the graphic. I tried to actually take a photo of it on TV, like the stats, so I don't have the exact stats, but basically in the games they win, he's done very well, in particular down the field. In the games they lose, his down the field passing has been horrific. And we're seeing, and the thing about Tom Brady is we're not only seeing, arm strength, accuracy, he's making some bad decisions. And I think what's lost in that is you get older, you just get a little bit slower, and the NFL moves so fast. So, I mean, if we see Tom Brady at his best, this should be a close game. If we see Tom Brady at not his best, this could be Chiefs in a rout. I do think something I've noticed about the Chiefs the last couple of years, whenever there's sort of like a big game where they're going up against what's at least perceived to be one of the best teams in the league, they always show up. We saw it earlier this season when it was Chiefs-Ravens, Monday Night Football. The Chiefs absolutely obliterated the Ravens. And we saw it in the playoffs. They had all the double-digit wins last year in the playoffs. If you look at who they've lost to, the last 2 years, they always lose to that team who's pretty good, like the Raiders or, Tennessee and Houston, who they lost to last year. And, they lost to the Packers, but that was without Mahomes. So with Mahomes, the last couple of years, when they've gone up against, a really legitimate, Super Bowl contender, they've pounded them. And I think I'm kind of leaning towards Chiefs in a blowout. I think, they've got the highest scoring offense now with Seattle slowing down a little bit the last few weeks. And the Buccaneers, actually, the last few weeks, their defense hasn't looked as good as they looked at early in the year. I think even their running game, now it was against the Rams. The Rams are a great defense, but their run game that you mentioned, certainly they have the potential to ground and pound, and that is one of Kansas City's weaknesses, if we can call it that, with that team. But I just don't see it. I look at it as this is Mahomes' chance to show, hey, look, it's Tom Brady, and it's not a fair matchup. Tom Brady's 43. He's not going against Tom Brady in his prime, but it's a big game, and, you're going to say Mahomes isn't going to, dominate this other quarterback who people perceive as the best. I expect Mahomes to show up. I think even, Kelsey, who's a star tight end, you have Gronkowski on the other end. It's more like, hey, Kelsey shows that he's better than Gronkowski. Tyreek Hill is kind of on a mission to be the top receiver. So I like Kansas City's offense. I don't think Tampa will shut them down, and I look for Brady to make a mistake that Mahomes probably shouldn't. I think Kansas City wins this game and runs the table the rest of the season, by the way.
Yeah, wouldn't surprise me at all. So I don't think we have any more or professional games to pick, so we can move over to college. I don't think it's been announced yet
No.
But college football playoff rankings are going to be released this week. I think kind of looking at the standings right now, I believe the most recent ranking was Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and Clemson is being in. Do you see any surprises that the college football playoff is going to have, or do you think this is pretty much how the field's going to be for them?
Well, I think the interesting thing is what we'll see with the 2-3 seed. And Tom and I talked about this last week. Maybe not this week per se. I still think they're going to go with Notre Dame as a 2 seed because they're still undefeated, and Ohio State only beat Indiana by 7. I do think that was a little bit of a fluke. Justin Fields got several turnovers. Indiana obviously was as good as advertised, maybe a little bit better than we thought. But I think Justin Fields isn't going to have 2 to 3 turnovers probably in a game. I don't think he's ever had that many. So, I look for Ohio State to eventually hop Notre Dame, but I think this week it's going to be Alabama, number 1. They're the best team, undefeated. They've beaten everyone by at least 15 or more. Notre Dame should be number 2. They beat Clemson, who was previously number 1. Ohio State should be 3. They're undefeated. Clemson only loss at Notre Dame should be number 4. And you look at Texas A&M. Their only loss is to Alabama, and they beat Florida. They'll probably be 5. Florida will probably be 6. They just lost to A&M. And then 7, 8, a lot of people probably put Cincinnati at 7. I would actually put BYU at 7. And it's interesting that there's some talk that they might try to play each other, kind of a last-minute type deal to boost their resumes. That would be fun to see. But short of, Clemson losing a second game, in the ACC championship against Notre Dame, I think A&M, Florida, Cincy, BYU are all kind of on the outside looking in, need some major help.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. I think the top 4 in the AP, Bama, Notre Dame, Ohio State, Clemson, is probably what the rankings are going to be when they do get released. But Friday afternoon, 3:30 Eastern, Notre Dame at North Carolina, that's a heck of a ball game that I'm looking forward to watching. And Notre Dame, that's a tough one. And so you never know what can happen there in Chapel Hill, especially against Sam Howell. Yeah, he's been playing well, and North Carolina, they're ranked, so that will be one to watch after you have your Thanksgiving Day feast, of course, the day after the Thanksgiving.
Well, interestingly, though, North Carolina doesn't play much defense. That's their problem. They've certainly got the offense to beat anyone. Their defense is horrendous. So, I don't know. I mean, certainly Notre Dame could get upset, but I don't see it. I think we're so late into the season. I think some of these top teams just continue winning, and I don't see them losing personally. I mean, is there any chance for a BYU or Cincinnati? I don't really think so personally.
I think the only way that maybe happens, it would take at least 3 things to happen. Drew, like you mentioned, the potential that they could add that game to face off against each other and kind of just have whoever wins this duel is going
Don't
to
give Drew credit for what I mentioned.
You mentioned that comment?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Drew did. My apologies. No, I think that could obviously be one of the things that helps them. They would need that, and they would need probably Notre Dame to get upset by UNC and lose to Clemson, or Clemson losing to Notre Dame in the ACC championship game. I mean, even then, you probably need A&M and Florida both to have second losses on their season to even start considering Cincinnati and BYU.
Well, Florida will lose to Alabama in the SEC championship game.
Sure. I mean, that would probably be it. But it's one of those, Dumb and Dumber. So you're saying there's a chance, but not really, not a practical one.
And the Iron Bowl is this week, by the way. Alabama, Auburn. Alabama should probably win that one pretty handily this week.
Where's that at this week?
I believe it's at Auburn. Let me check it.
That's in Tuscaloosa. Okay.
In Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, 3:30 Eastern. That's the 3:30 CBS game.
Let's see. I'm trying to see what the line is. Do you have it pulled up? 24.5. So who's going to cover that line? That's a good line. because Alabama's so much better. Auburn struggled a little bit this year, but that's a rivalry game. That'll be interesting. I would take Alabama to cover still, personally.
There are several rivalry games. Oregon State, Friday night.
Oregon looks pretty good, by the way. This last week, close game, but they look pretty decent. Texas and Iowa State will be a good game. I look for Texas to win that one.
Yeah, Breece Hall, really good, though. Watch out. Breece Hall, outstanding running back. We saw him last weekend. I can't remember who the Cyclones played, but Breece Hall had a heck of a game.
I think it was Kansas State, wasn't it?
I believe so. Yep.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was Kansas State. 45-0 for the.
Oh goodness! Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I'd like to see someone get upset. They did say, I saw something that the playoff committee met, and they said that they were not doing 8 teams this year for sure, because they had brought it up something. Oh, it's a COVID season. Could we try 8 teams? There was some sort of discussion about that. It didn't go very far, so they did say we're sticking with 4. So it makes
a really intriguing year though. If they did 8, like if you look at like this top 8 just off the AP ranking, I'd watch that. That'd be really fun to see.
Sure. Well, I'm looking forward to Clemson and Ohio State. Last year was one of the best games of the college football season in the college football semifinal. Assuming Clemson beats Notre Dame, in the ACC championship game, we're assuming a lot of things, but it's not a very big assumption. It could be Ohio State versus Clemson in that 2-3 matchup. That would be a heck of a game because you would have the top 2 NFL draft picks going up against each other in Trevor Lawrence and Justin Fields. And Ohio State was really fueled by that loss last year against Clemson. I mean, it was a heartbreaker. Fields actually had an interception late in the game. He was going into the game to drive. That could be an incredible football game. So
here's hoping.
Here's to hoping. Guess what else comes back tomorrow? We're recording on Tuesday today. College basketball comes back tomorrow. That kind of snuck up on you a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Did it?
A little bit. Gonzaga. Is it Gonzaga or is it Gonzaga? I think it's Gonzaga. I always mix that up.
I pronounce it Gonzaga. But that's because I don't want to have that really thick Chicago, Gonzaga, Gonzaga. I don't want to have that kind of accent on it, so I go Gonzaga.
What do you think? Is it Gonzaga or Gonzaga?
I'm trying to think.
I know it's hard for him to think. I know it's hard work.
I mean, it's not Gonzaga. It's Gonzaga.
Okay, well, Gonzaga. They actually play Kansas on Thursday. I kind of had on our rundown for us to pick who we think is going to win the championship just because it's fun to make a prediction. Just because, obviously, we know nothing about any of these teams because we haven't seen them play in so long.
Mm-hmm.
But that'll be, I believe that's Thanksgiving Thursday, I believe that game is.
That's on Fox as well.
And I think that's during the Lions. What time is the game? KU game.
I think it's 1:30 Eastern.
1:30. So it's kind of in between the Lions, Texans, and I was about to say Redskins, but Washington
football team
in Dallas. So you can check out that game. That's actually going to be a really good game because you've got 2 top 10 teams in that game. I personally think, and I'll have a lot more on college basketball in my statement of the week, by the way, so stay tuned for that.
Nice.
But we saw a very weak NBA draft. There weren't a lot of stars, and there's really not that many stars coming back. It's kind of a weird season. I really don't know who to pick. I have a feeling with Gonzaga. We'll go with Gonzaga for now.
Actually, I've just been looking it up. It actually is Zaga, so Gonzaga.
So I was right. Okay, good.
Yeah.
You were wrong. I'll take it.
The funny thing is, I should know this, but okay, go ahead.
So I like Gonzaga to win the championship. I believe they're preseason number 1. And what was cool for them is 2017 they played UNC in the title game. They've kind of been that powerhouse program, lower conference team for years, and for them they just couldn't make the Final Four, couldn't make the championship. Well, they were in the Elite Eight in 2019. They were 31-2, ranked number 2 in the country last year before the season ended. You had Dayton, who was third, lost Obi Toppin. Florida State was number 4. They lost some draft picks. They did lose their top leading scorer, but they've got 3 to 4 really key players and some of their leading scorers back. 7 guys last year averaged about 10 points for Gonzaga. 4 of them are back this year. They've got the experience, and I think Mark Few is one of the best coaches in the country, and I think this is finally his time to win a college basketball championship. But I tell you what, it's kind of a guessing game because there really is not that many really great college teams right now, and we haven't seen them play. But I just have a feeling with the Zags.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, Gonzaga is up there annually for March Madness picks along with the Belmont Bruins as teams that I choose to go further than they actually do. It's a hallmark as I'm putting those brackets together. First off, I don't understand how they're necessarily going to be playing a full season. We already seen, I think, at least 30-something programs. It might be up to 40-something programs now that have had practices suspended, facilities closed due to COVID. Something I don't really fully understand why we have to have a non-conference schedule. Look at all the stuff that's been going on in college football, and they play once a week. When you consider that these programs are going to be going to 2, sometimes 3, maybe even 4 games in a week, think of all the travel that they have to do. I don't understand why they don't simply just basically can the non-conference schedule as is. Maybe set up a couple bubble tournaments with some cross-conference teams. I think that would be a really cool thing to see. Kind of do like an ACC Big Ten challenge in a bubble setting. I don't necessarily know why they don't do that, and then give themselves more space for the conference games, the games that really, really matter for a March Madness resume. It makes a lot of sense to do that. I think that they are probably trying to jump back into everything's back to normal really, really quickly. And at a time where you look across the country, numbers are spiking. I think that there's going to be a lot of scheduling issues. There's going to be a lot of postponements, cancellations. I think that's going to be a pretty big problem. However, the season ends. There will be a champion crowned, I believe, in common. I'm with you on this one. Gonzaga, like I said, is a team I always pick to go too far, and I'm hopeful that this time they actually break through. They're one of the few teams that returns a lot of players. We see as a product of the one-and-done system that Kentucky doesn't, a lot of the blue bloods, Kentucky, Duke, North Carolina, Kansas, they don't retain a lot of talent that we get to kind of follow some storylines. I mean, we're looking at Kentucky, a talented team this year. It's really, really inexperienced. How does John Calipari bring that all together? But I'm with you. Mark Few, the Zags, I'm going to pick them to win the title as well.
By the way, the team I always pick to go far, and they actually usually do, is UNC. That's my March Madness team, and they usually do go far.
Rebounding will always get you going.
Zags.
Yeah,
what?
It's. Go ahead, Tom.
You say something?
I'm just saying they have a strong rebounding, so that always takes UNC far. They got big bodies and they control possessions. That's all.
Absolutely. And
I would just comment on the rankings that it takes 6 spots until you get to a traditional blue blood program. So the rankings a little bit different this season than prior years, and I think there's plenty of talent out there. Is there LeBron? I know LeBron didn't go to college, but is there somebody like that who the world is, like a Zion Williamson that everybody's watching? No, not yet, but you gotta get a chance to see these players out on the court, and obviously Gonzaga, a lot of returning guys, a lot of talent on that team, but don't overlook Baylor. I think Baylor, they have obviously a lot of talent coming back, and Scott Drew did a great job last year. They won, 23 straight games, something like that. So they had a heck of a season and had, March Madness played out, I think we would have seen Baylor at least in the Final Four. So, keep an eye on them this season. But I'll be curious to see Villanova, Virginia, Iowa, some of those teams. Obviously Virginia's won a title recently. Villanova has. But Iowa, they're not usually ranked that high. So
sure.
We'll see.
They have a big guy coming back.
Yeah. I can't. His name.
Luke Garza, I think. Is it Luke Garza?
Yeah. Garza.
He's top National Player of the Year candidate, like 20 and 10 type guy.
Yeah, so, one could argue that there's, a lot of talent is just spread out from team to team instead of one team being loaded up.
Yeah, real quickly on the rankings, Drew, you mentioned that Gonzaga, Baylor, Villanova, Virginia, Iowa, that's your top 5. So, I would argue that Villanova is right on the edge of a blue blood program, but certainly,
I meant the traditional UCLA, Kentucky, North Carolina, Kansas, Duke. I think those are the 5 blue blood traditions.
I got it. Kansas is number 6, Duke is number 9, Kentucky is number 10, UNC is number 16, UCLA 22. So, all those teams are a little bit far back. I think this year, though, and we see this most years, the rankings don't mean this much, but this year it's even – I know we had most of the season last year, but we didn't see how those teams do in a tournament setting, and there have been some pushbacks in terms of workouts and stuff. It just has a different feel to it, and I think what Tom mentioned is true. I think we're going to see a lot of postponements. Certainly with basketball, it actually could be more interesting than football because you have so few players. And if you're down like 2 to 3 key players, that could really mess up your team. So COVID is going to have a major thing. They did announce that they're going to do the whole tournament in Indianapolis. I don't know if you guys saw that.
Yep.
So the
They're
NCAA
talking about it. I don't know if they made it official yet.
They didn't make it official. I thought they did.
That could be news I haven't seen
I thought
yet.
it was official as well.
I think it's official, Tom. So they're going to do the whole tournament in Indianapolis. That certainly is a good decision. I'm on the same page with you there, but I think the whole COVID stuff is going to be a big deal because, seeding matters too when we get to the tournaments, whether you're a 1, 2, 3 seed. I guess we won't really have regions this year, so that won't be as important, but there's a lot of games that could be won or lost with, all of a sudden your 2 star players go down, you're in big trouble. This isn't football where you have a 60-man roster or whatever you carry. You've got like 12 to 15 guys, and you get 3 to 4 of them go down. You could be in big trouble. So I think a good game to watch would be the Gonzaga and Kansas game. That should really tell us about where those teams are. But it's too early. We'll have to revisit this in a few months.
Absolutely, yeah. And speaking of too early, we're going to shift over to the NBA now, where we're going to talk a little bit about free agency's been open. We've seen some trades going through. Some trades didn't go through. There's a little bit of a mix-up comment I talked about in Milwaukee last week. Bogdan Bogdanović is now no longer going to be a Milwaukee Buck. But we've seen a lot of free agency.
Paul was going to be a Laker, and that didn't happen.
Yeah, well,
wasn't that the NBA or David Stern who said no to that?
David Stern shut it down.
Yeah, shut down, send him to L.A. instead because it's like some competitive balance for the then Hornets, now Pelicans, I think, something like that. I get mixed up on how they switched all those teams around. But the big thing I think we've seen out of NBA free agency so far is the number of players that are actually staying with teams and the young stars, the next generation of big-name talent, signing max extensions. You have Jason Tatum in Boston. You have Donovan Mitchell in Utah. I know Brendan Ingram in New Orleans for the Pelicans has signed one. There's been a couple other players that have. I know I'm not getting all the names in there.
Miami Heat.
Bam Adebayo for the Miami Heat. That has implications on 2021 if they're able to pursue Giannis. I wonder if they're hearing things that Giannis might be signing a supermax extension as well. But what are some of your guys' first blush thoughts on free agency? Certainly there's still players out there and trades to be made, but the season's already going to be coming up about a month from now. We're going to be talking NBA regular season pretty soon as well. Who do you think has started out really, really strongly in free agency and trading? And who do you think has made maybe some questionable moves? Not quite sure what they're up to.
Sure. Well, first off, I think the NBA salary cap has gone. I know you love contracts and money.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy how much money these NBA guys receive. You can get a role player, get like a 2-year, $20 million deal,
Sure.
$10 million to come off the bench and not play very much. It's just crazy, and that's kind of translated to some of the contracts. We mentioned Bam, and we mentioned he improved a lot last year. Ingram certainly did. I think he was most improved player, but normally, like, those are good young players. You don't think of a Bam Adebayo or Ingram getting like a max contract deal. Donovan Mitchell, maybe. He played great against the Nuggets, getting like 50 points in multiple games in that series. He's right on that borderline. Jason Tatum, again, maybe. But certainly some of these guys that certainly wouldn't have gotten those type of contracts in years past are getting them. But I think that's the way the league is moving. Really interesting about this free agent class, there really is no big-time superstars. I think there's a lot of good role players to be gotten, but there's literally no superstars. I mean, Anthony Davis is technically an unrestricted free agent, but he's probably going to the Lakers. James Harden wants to get traded. We talked about that last week at Exhaust. I don't know that that's going to happen. The Rockets are probably going to keep him. To me, the team that is definitely winning the free agency, and real quick, gosh, I really struggle with it, but I don't know about giving some of those guys max deals. Maybe give them just a little bit less, but again, that's how it's moving. The Lakers, to me, are the winners, though. Montrezl Harrell was Sixth Man of the Year this last year. Dennis Schroeder was a finalist for that. They got two really good pieces there. They got Marc Gasol, another veteran center who's done a lot of really good things. They re-signed Caldwell Pope. We talked about three-point shooting and analytics. Well, they're not a very good three-point shooting team, but that's kind of their guy that does that. They got Wesley Matthews, another shooter. They lost Dwight Howard and Rondo, but those guys are getting older and older. So, Harrell, Schroeder, a little bit younger and a little bit better role players, quite frankly. So they've upgraded their team. I think the Warriors had the huge blow of Klay Thompson going down. That's just heartbreaking, gut-wrenching news. Literally hours after we talked about it on the show last week, Tom and I talking about the Warriors being a championship contender with the return of Klay. Don't sleep on them as a playoff team. Some people don't think they'll make the playoffs. They have Curry, Oubre, Wiggins. The Warriors actually have also done a pretty good job in free agency. In terms of who hasn't done a good job, I don't know that I can really point to someone because, again, I simply don't think that there's a lot of star power in this. I guess the Clippers would be the team I'd pick just because they lost Montrezl Harrell. Not only did they lose him, but they lost him to the rival, the Lakers, in the same city, in the same market, who you're trying to beat. So they'd be my losers, I guess.
Drew, who do you like as the guys doing well and doing poorly in free agency, do you think?
Well, something that really stuck out with me was Gordon Hayward leaving Boston. I know they got Jason Tatum back, but
he'll be like $30 million or something, right? He had the option to sign for like 30. I don't remember the rank. Tom, you can look it up, Mr. Contract. But he shut down money to leave Boston. Like he could have re-signed.
Yeah,
and
you're correct. Yes,
he passed on the money.
Yeah, and I'm not sure the inside scoop on that, why he wanted to leave Boston, but that's a pretty big deal, I think. I know they got Tatum back, but he's the guy who he was injured last year for most of the season, coming back off injury. So I think he has high expectations. But he goes to the Charlotte Hornets, and the Hornets, I know you don't think of them as a powerhouse, but watch out. They have a lot of young guys. They have now Hayward. They have Devontae Graham from Kansas, Terry Rozier, P.J. Washington, Cody Zeller. They drafted LaMelo Ball. What?
Bust. Mr. 25% three-point shooter in the Australian League, 37% from the field.
He just got drafted.
LaMelo Ball.
Oh, boy. And I know you said this year's draft talent was weak, Common, but, I mean, we don't even know how these guys will play. I know Anthony Edwards isn't LeBron James, but that guy
I watched him in college against Mizzou. He got blocked by Reed Nico. Reed Nico. who barely could play, blocks him with the game on the line. Anthony Edwards, also, again, same deal. Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, not very good three-point shooters. I went on about that last week.
And you also, I think you also said that there will not be a Hall of Famer in this draft class.
I don't see that.
I disagree with that. I think there will be.
Okay, fair enough.
Really? Is that a tease, or are you willing to?
He's the Hall of Famer.
That's not a tease. I just want to
disagree
with Tommy because I know these guys will improve.
Is there a specific guy you have in mind, or you're just saying in general?
Oh, I'm just saying in general.
Okay. Well, I
Patrick Williams.
Real quick on the Hayward thing, it's interesting. He had his old coach Brad Stevens there in Boston. I think he left because there simply weren't enough basketballs in Boston. You look at Jason Tatum. You look at Kemba Walker, Brown. Also, they've got a lot of young talent, and they kind of split the scoring pretty evenly. But I think Hayward looks at himself as a possible number one or a very solid number two. He was kind of like a tied for third type deal over there. So I think he probably wants more opportunities because he was the main guy on the Jazz, and they made the playoffs, I think, one of those years when he played there. So good point bringing up the Hayward deal for sure. And does that make – I guess Boston are they a loser for losing him? I guess they –
Yeah, that's why I brought it up. Yes.
Does it open up more opportunities, for Tatum to kind of – because I think Tatum is probably the best guy there. Does it almost kind of open up more opportunities for him type deal? I mean, it does.
Absolutely. Do what?
It hurts them overall, though, getting rid of Hayward.
Yeah, they'll just have to learn to mesh again. And I know they played a lot without Hayward last season, but it just felt like they were better when he was in the game.
Sure. He's an awesome.
Yeah. I mean, he's good. But yeah, Jason Tatum. If you're in a fantasy basketball league, draft him.
He almost made what would have been the greatest shot in college basketball history when he threw up that behind half-court shot, Hayward, with Butler. It went off the backboard and off. They were down 2 against Duke. Would have been a half-court shot at the buzzer to win the championship. Just barely missed out.
You watched that in college, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Can you guys hear my dog? My dog is knocking on
bit, but not a lot.
To get in. Poor guy. We're recording a show. Maybe we'll let him in later.
By the way, speaking of great finals, I mean, we've been really thankful for all these in the last 10 years. There's been a lot of really good college basketball championship games.
Yeah,
incredible.
You want to move on to what we're thankful for? Because this is Thanksgiving week. We're going to talk about what we're thankful for in the sports world. Drew, why don't you kick us off?
Well, I mean, I just brought that up for fun. I didn't even think of it as a transition.
No, great college. What's been your favorite? I think that Villanova-UNC game where UNC hits the crazy shot to tie the game, and then Villanova gets a 3 at the buzzer. That stands out as one of the all-time great college championship games for sure.
Yeah, and that shot by North Carolina, I can't remember who hit it.
Marshall, the lefty point guard. Maybe that I'm mixing up his name.
No.
He was the lefty point guard. He double clutched. He was number 5.
Kobe White?
No, Kobe White is a Chicago Bull. Kobe White was after him.
No, but this was okay.
I think it was Marshall.
Anyway, okay, I don't remember who it was, but that shot was nuts, right? So it was like a double pump, wasn't it? Like it was a crazy shot that he made, and then you have Villanova coming down the court. Chris Jenkins, throws that one up and hits it. So obviously that was probably one of the best, probably the best championship game in the last 5-6 years.
Was it Marcus Page?
Marcus Page.
That's it. Well done, Tom. Well done.
Thank you.
I was just thinking Page right before you said that, so you stole the word.
Of course you were.
Number 5, right? Is he number 5, Tom? Number 5. He's a lefty. I remember him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he was good.
That's pretty good. But no, I'm thankful for in the sports world. Obviously, sports is going right now.
Sure.
I think that's a win for everybody, especially those who work in sports. It's nice to have something on TV that's live. It's been nice to come home and watch games. And you mentioned the NBA starting out shortly, the NHL also coming back here in the next month or two. So obviously thankful.
We'll have to have Alex Rowe, our hockey Barry Melrose, to come on and do a segment for us.
Of course. But, just, thankful to be able to watch sports. And we had the Masters, and College Game Day was at the Masters. That was really cool. So we've seen some things we haven't seen before as far as sports go, like College Game Day at the Masters. But I think it's been good to watch, and it's been different, but I've been okay with it.
Tom, do you have any fatigue? Are you still fatigued over games? Tom experiences
that was one weekend where there were like 4 or 5 days of football in as many days. That was one weekend that I brought that up.
So you're feeling less fatigued now?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
good.
I just needed a little bit because you had like NBA, MLB, and then you had NFL and college football just like all together. Like it
that was a perfect weekend for me.
I'm sure.
Perfect weekend. What are you thankful for in the sports world?
So I am thankful with all the leagues coming back. Definitely great to see sports back on TV. But I am thankful for athletes using their platforms to speak out for good and for change in our country and in the world.
Sure.
Be it social justice, get out the vote with 2020 being a vote year, or the more common but no less impactful charitable ventures that they go on with foundations for cancer, helping people who are homeless get homes, people who are hungry get fed. We recognize now more than ever with COVID-19 how much American entertainment hinges on the performance of athletes. So I'm thankful for them and say good for them for recognizing not only their value on the court, but their value to affect change in the world beyond what they do. So that's what I'm thankful for this year.
Yeah. So first off, it goes without saying kind of what you guys said real quickly. I'm thankful for sports in general happening because there were a lot of question marks. There's still some question marks and there's, a lot of debate, but I think it's exciting to have sports back. It gives me something to do, something to watch. Obviously, you guys know this, I'm in between jobs. I work in the sports broadcast world, but now I've got a lot of free time to just sit back and watch games. Sunday, watch NFL Red Zone and watch primetime games. Thankful for all of that. I will say I'm specifically thankful for Patrick Mahomes. He continues to provide me incredible entertainment. Through 41 starts, he's first in NFL history in yards, touchdowns, and passer rating. And it's kind of one of those things where, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm having this struggle personally because Lionel Messi, who's my favorite soccer player and favorite athlete, finally seems to be going downwards as a player, and he's getting up there in age. Roger Federer potentially could be in his last tennis season, another one of my all-time favorites. So I'm kind of seeing their career wind down. LeBron James doesn't seem to be slowing down. He's superhuman, but certainly in the next couple of years, eventually he'll slow down. So I'm looking at my favorite athletes in sports, and I'm seeing that a lot of them are, gonna retire soon. But Patrick Mahomes is still playing, and we've got, knock on wood, no injuries, no nothing, another 10 to 15 years at least of his greatness. So I'm going to go say hi to my dog, Ruth. He's going crazy. But that's what I'm thankful for. Anything else you guys want to add on to that?
No, I think we hit the nail on the head there.
All right, he went away, so I'll talk to him later. My dog, by the way, is named Messi, Lionel Messi, after the soccer player. He's a golden retriever. I'm thankful for him as well in this holiday season for sure.
So, it's sorry to interrupt. The rankings just came out.
Sure.
Breaking news.
Alabama, Notre Dame, Clemson, Ohio State, A&M is 5, Florida 6.
So they flipped Clemson and OSU.
Really? Did you say Clemson was 3rd? Is that right, Drew?
It was an alert on my phone. Let me get into the article real quick.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah, I'm looking it up as well. Wow, I think this is the first time we've had like breaking news on the show. Let's see.
I'll let you guys.
Looking at it right now, no. Number 1 is Alabama at 7-0. Number 2, Notre Dame at 8-0. Number 3 is Clemson at 7-1. Number 4 is Ohio State at 4-0. So it looks like the College Football Playoff Committee is really putting a premium on having already played a larger schedule of games. Kind of surprising to me that OSU, as talented as they have been, is already on the fringes, kind of going to be that last team out if they happen to falter.
Where are Indiana and Northwestern?
Northwestern is ranked 8th. Indiana is ranked 12th.
Oh, Northwestern is 8th?
Northwestern at 5-0 is 8th. They are above Georgia at 5-2. They're above Miami at 7-1 and Oklahoma at 6-2.
Well, who are they ahead of, Cincinnati or BYU?
They are behind Cincinnati. Cincinnati is ranked 7. BYU is all the way down at 14 at 9-0.
Okay, wow. They really don't like
surprises there.
So yeah, so I think that tells you in the college rankings, it tells you that one, maybe they're not as high on Ohio State as we think, and 2, they're very high on strength of schedule. I think certainly seeing BYU as low as that, and you have, Clemson, who's lost the game ahead of Ohio State because they lost to Notre Dame, that kind of tells you. And I think the Big Ten, I guess Northwestern did get put in pretty good at number 8, so maybe they're not necessarily being disrespectful to the Big Ten, but they're really looking at that strength of schedule, which is interesting. This speaks very good for both Clemson and Notre Dame, though, because should they play each other in the ACC title game, it speaks very well for them if that game is competitive for one of or both of them getting in, regardless of the outcome.
Well, if you have to wonder because Trevor Lawrence didn't play against Notre Dame for Clemson, correct? So you have to wonder if Trevor Lawrence plays, if Clemson and Notre Dame meet in the ACC championship game and Trevor Lawrence plays and Clemson loses that game, how will they value it?
We have some intrigue there.
Well, they might be out. That's the only scenario. But I'm just saying if
I don't know.
If Notre Dame loses that game, and also it wasn't just Trevor Lawrence. They had several defensive players out.
Sure.
That was actually probably an even bigger deal because DJ, his backup, played really well. But yeah, a little bit surprising to see Ohio State at number 4. Very surprising. I don't know. That's kind of hard for Ohio State, that big brand name, and I know they played less games. Tom mentioned that, but that's kind of the big surprise. I did not see them being number 4. Certainly had them at number 3.
But I will say there's a lot of season to play. Normally on November 24th, we're not saying that, but with the everything starting up a little late and all the multiple buys for some conferences, we'll be going into mid-December.
Sure, absolutely.
Great. Well, that's really exciting to see. I'm going to switch over to doing our locks now.
Yeah.
That we've wrapped up that breaking news. So, Common, you have the results from last week.
I'll give you the results from last week and the season records.
Drew,
oh, he's excited. Maybe he went 3-0.
Really quickly, Drew, I would like to say that had I listened to Kamen Enchev, I might not have a house coming up in a couple of days. I'm sure he will illuminate you as to how that went.
Yeah, this is true.
I don't actually know his locks. I don't know your locks from last week.
Okay, so first off, I would like to say, Drew, I'm still in first place. On the season, I'm 8-6-1. Drew's in second at 6-8-1. And Tom, you're 5-10. Last week, you tried to tell me you were 3-9, but you're actually 4-8. You tried to steal a win from yourself.
No, I expunged the highly overjuiced presidential bid that I put together. I expunged that for a player prop that I ended up losing. So that's why the record's different.
I gave you the credit. We'll give you the win because
we're all playing by the same rules. We're all under the same rules.
Okay, so you're 5-10. You want me to switch it to 4-11 then?
Yes.
Okay.
That is how we're doing it.
Tom is in last place. Tom had a 1-2 week. He hit the NBA draft pick order. Then you missed the Chiefs. Chiefs didn't cover against the Raiders, and
barbecued me.
Yeah, they got you good there. And you missed the Bucks not covering against the Rams.
Lost outright.
Lost outright. So not a good week.
Nope.
Drew was 2-1. He got Seattle -3 over the Cards. Got the under on the Texans barely, and
I think half a point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by half a point. It was 47.5. It was 47 points. So you got that one barely, but you missed the under on Vikings Cowboys. That was pretty close also. So and I was actually I coming off a 3-0 week. I actually went 1-2 this week, and I missed. What did I miss? I missed the Texans and Patriots line, and I hit the Browns covering against the Eagles. The game that Tom is referencing that I told you to bet your mortgage on was on the Dolphins covering 3 or 3.5, whatever it was at the time, against the Broncos. The Dolphins lost outright, so I hope no one put their mortgage on that one. As they say, any given Sunday.
I still have a house.
You still have a house. That was crazy because on paper Miami should have covered, but as we know, sometimes the game isn't played on paper; it's played on the field, and that's why it could go either way. So I was a little disappointed by that Miami game. Certainly the biggest surprise of the week to me. But it's going to be a good week. What do you guys got this week?
Go ahead, Tom.
All right. I'm just making a last-minute change because I kind of like having a little bit of a narrative for at least one of my picks.
Oh, good.
So we'll start with Thanksgiving Day. We have the first game up. The Houston Texans are visiting the Detroit Lions. The Texans rather are favored by 3. I'm going to have the Lions to cover the 3 points and pull out a win at home. It's a Thanksgiving tradition for the Detroit Lions to let their fans down. Why not let one of their pickers down as well?
Of course.
I will have in the NFL on Sunday the Cardinals covering -2.5 in New England. I think there's a lot of good value there. I think Cardinals win outright and probably by more than a field goal. And then the line moved on me a little bit. If we had the show earlier today, I might have gotten a better price on this. Steelers covering -5.5 against the Ravens. I think Ravens have been pretty disjointed, like we talked about earlier in the show. And then, of course, with the COVID issue running through their football facilities, we don't know what condition that team is going to be in. So I think the Steelers can definitely roll against a short-handed Ravens team on a short week. So those are my 3 locks. Lions covering +3. Cardinals covering -2.5, Steelers covering -5.5.
Real quick, Tom, so these are the things you actually believe, because I think you said last week if you have another bad week, which you didn't go 0-3, but you went 1-2.
If I have another 0-3, I'm going to fade myself. Yes.
So fade yourself.
I will. If I have another 0-3, I said I was going to fade myself, where I would make picks, and then we would count the exact opposite of what I picked.
So you're pulling a George Costanza, just doing the opposite of what you're actually thinking.
Precisely, yes. This is not that week. I actually feel pretty good about these, as I always do. But if I go 0-3, the next time I go 0-3, the following week, we'll have a Bizarro Tom pick segment.
I can't wait.
Wow.
I can. I hope it never happens.
It could happen. I don't know. For the record, I don't know that I agree with a couple of your picks. What are the Lions? I kind of like
covering +3.
Yeah, I like Houston in that game. What was your second one?
Cardinals covering -2.5.
Yeah, that one's going to happen. And I think your third one's a toss-up. You'll go 1-2, 2-1.
We'll see.
We'll see. Drew, what do you got? You got some soccer over-under for us?
Of course I do. English Premier League on Friday. Crystal Palace, Newcastle United, under 2 goals. Book it.
Under 2?
Those teams aren't scoring. Give me a break.
Well, I think
under 2.
Newcastle United beat Everton 1-0 a few weeks back or something. I remember.
Sure.
You don't even follow soccer. I watch it religiously. bet these lines just to get a reaction out of me. Under 2
so
all right.
Yes, under 2. 2 is the line.
I'll have to disagree with that. That's a very low under.
Yes. Other locks of the week for me, we'll go to Sunday. We'll go to the NFL. It's a tough one for me, but I'm going to just go ahead and do it. At least I think it's on Sunday. Yes, it is. Panthers on the road against the Vikings. Give me the Vikings in this game. I think Dalvin Cook and company, Kirk Cousins return the form. They cover 4 at U.S. Bank Stadium against the Panthers. And finally, the Jacksonville Jaguars at home against the Cleveland Browns. The Browns actually looked pretty good last week. They're not going to have to deal with 65-mile-an-hour winds, but give me Jacksonville to cover 7 in that contest.
Interesting. Betting on the one-win Jacksonville Jaguars. Granted, you're not betting on them to win, but still. Okay. So I'm going to go to the NFL for 3 picks. I'll start with the big game. I had it at -3. It's now moved to 3.5. Go ahead and take it at 3.5. The Chiefs -3.5 at the Bucks. Again, I talked about it earlier. Kansas City shows up in big games. This is kind of a changing of the guard in terms of best quarterback ever type deal. So I look for Mahomes to show up, an aging Tom Brady in that game. Give me Seattle -5.5 at the Eagles. Philly's been dreadful the last few weeks. Lost by 10 to the Giants. Kept it close to the Browns. It was 5, but they got a late touchdown there. It wasn't as close as the score showed. Seattle, all of a sudden, we talk about this every week. You know, who's the team that comes out of the NFC that we're impressed with this week? Seattle played pretty good defensively against the Cardinals last week. Not bad the week before against the Rams either. All of a sudden, their defense and their running game seem to be improving. A dangerous team. They should cover 5.5 against the Eagles. And finally, give me the Raiders -3 at the Falcons. We just saw the Raiders barely lose to the Chiefs. They've already beaten the Chiefs this year, already beaten the Saints. They beat the Browns also, lost the Bills, Patriots, Chiefs, and Bucks. So they played a really hard schedule. They're 6-4. This is a little bit easier game against a weak Atlanta team. They need this game to make the playoffs. I think the Raiders are a safe bet to win by more than 3 in that one.
All right, sounds good. So we're ready to move on to our salutes and statements of the week. Who wants to lead off?
I'll lead off. Mine will be pretty quick. So it's kind of a salute, but it's more of a statement. I think, obviously, last week Klay Thompson of the Warriors got hurt. We saw Joe Burrow get hurt over the weekend. Of course, the number 1 pick for the Bengals. And, you know, it's tough. Injuries are part of the game, but, you know, I've never gotten hurt, you know, in any game, but it must be so difficult to get hurt. But, you know, I think
hurt when you played one-on-one against me and lost, though, and in the 3-point shootout we had in college.
Sure, yes. Can't remember those, but yes.
You're getting
he interrupts a serious statement to do something dumb, of course. Where was I going with this?
Go ahead, injuries.
Yeah, it must be so difficult to get hurt, but, you know, I think it gives these guys, they may be hurt right now, but it gives them an opportunity to build character and then come back as a better athlete and a better person. So while injuries extremely difficult, it can teach us fans to be positive and know that player will come back and be okay.
And really heartbreaking on the Klay Thompson front because he just came back off an injury. He missed all of this last season. He's now essentially going to miss 2 straight seasons. We'll see what this means for his career. One of the great NBA players and a good guy by all measures. That was hard to see. Joe Burrow, again, obviously also tough to see, MCL and ACL. So, I mean, I agree with you there, obviously. Tom?
Yeah, so a quick salute to Calvin Johnson and Peyton Manning, announced as among the 25 semifinalists for the NFL Hall of Fame. I think both should be first ballot Hall of Famers, quite frankly, but just want to say a quick salute to them. My statement of the week is going back into the world of college basketball. Rick Pitino, a legendary coach, recently said on Twitter that instead of March Madness this year, we should maybe have May Madness instead. Quote, save the season, Pitino wrote on Twitter. Move the start back, play league schedule, and have May Madness. Spiking and protocols make it impossible to play right now, and I wholeheartedly agree with him. Hosting the tournament in May would give COVID vaccines, which is basically our cavalry riding over the horizon, a longer window for application and a better chance for sustained success. It would give enough folks a chance to receive the vaccine, and even if fans can't necessarily be on site, at least we can know that the players and coaches are healthy and taken care of for our entertainment. The coronavirus pandemic broke out in a major way right as conference tournaments were playing last season, and we were supposed to be getting March Madness as well, but that sadly got canceled, kicking off this whole wacky year of sports being played out of season. I can't think of a better way to unofficially declare the COVID pandemic as over than to have March Madness coming back. And I think coming back in May is not only a more practicable solution, I think it's a more healthful one as well.
Sure, and the thing about that's beautiful is those guys are going to be on the college campuses, in April and May. I mean, you can't push it into the summer, but you could push it into May. It's tough to disagree with that.
You have nothing but time. You don't really have college football. You don't have any major sports that with whom you're going to be competing. Push it back a little bit. Make sure everybody is safe and prepared to play. And doing it on site in Indianapolis sounds great. I don't know how many teams they're going to have in the tournament, but
they're planning on the normal 68.
The normal 64. Yeah, I'm all for that, but pushing it back to May, making sure that we have everything stretched out so everybody's able to get everything in, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I agree with you, but it's not going to happen. It could happen because once they cancel so many things early on, but that's not their ideal game plan. We'll see what happens. I'm going to actually stick with college basketball for my statement of the week as well. So this has been a much debated topic over the years. Kind of reminds me of the BCS in college football. There were many years where we wanted to get rid of the BCS. We went to a 14 playoff. It's a success now. We're probably going to go to an 18 playoff eventually, I expect. But for college basketball, we got to get rid of the one and done rule. We got to go back to these kids going straight out of the high school to the NBA because beyond the fact that it's, hurting these athletes who could potentially lose out on money based on season-ending injuries, career-ending injuries, quite frankly, it's also bad for the brand of college basketball. We don't see these big-name teams like we had Tyler Hansborough and Ty Lawson, like UNC. You had the names. You had Kevin Pittsnagel way back in the day with West Virginia. All these guys who played in college for 3-4 years. The intrigue of the regular season. March Madness is March Madness. I love March Madness. Everyone loves March Madness. But if we're being honest with ourselves, the level of interest and level of play in the regular season of college basketball has significantly decreased. You guys both know me. I'm a huge sports nerd. I actually had trouble. I looked up the top 25 college basketball players predicted going into this year, and there were some names on there that I didn't know. And that never used to happen back in the day. And I don't watch quite as much college basketball as I used to, but I still watch considerable. And the amount of talent that you see and the amount of recognizable names that you see on there was not impressive. I think I would love to see guys stay 2, 3, 4 years. And the only way you're going to do that is by allowing the high school guys, money, but that's beyond that, is allowing the high school guys to go straight to the pros and allowing for a little bit more camaraderie and teamwork. I think it would be both good for the NBA, good for the athletes, and good for the college game. So get rid of the one and done rule in college basketball. Everyone wins.
Yeah. That'd be nice. I mean, yeah, well, like long gone are the days where Tim Duncan can be a 4-year player at
Wake
Georgia
Forest.
Tech, was it?
Come on.
Wake Forest, thank you.
Georgia Tech was Chris Bosh, I think, right?
Thank you. Okay, I'm mixing up my big men. But yeah, long gone are those days. Michael Jordan spending 3 years at UNC, or Hakeem Olajuwon came out of Houston, I want to say. Patrick Ewing at Georgetown. Yeah, like bring back the college rivalries where they're just like, even if it's not going to necessarily be great players anymore because there is so much more player agency going straight from high school to college, absolutely get rid of one and done on the NBA side and, let the players go where they want to play. Yeah.
Drew, what do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, right now, the one and done, I think it's doing what is best for that player, right? If that player feels they're good enough to go to the NBA with 1 year of college, then it's good for them. Why? So you're saying just let them come out of high school then?
Sure. They come out of high school. And really for the player, just in case, it's probably, I'm sure you can argue you can develop in college, but for the player, it's probably best to go right away, I think. Get your guaranteed money right away. And I don't know. And the thing that I struggle with is I was thinking.
Yeah, but where they? I mean, I don't know. I think players gain a lot by playing at least 1 year in college. They learn a lot. They learn the game more. I know AAU is pretty high level.
Well, right. What I was struggling with, I just go back and forth on this because I was almost going to say that you should tell the college kids if they're going to play college basketball, they have to commit to at least 2 years. But then it's like, well, how do you draw a line? It just gets really complicated. But, I mean, this is a complicated issue, certainly.
And it's a very, very complicated issue. I would like to see a list of high school players who went directly from high school to the NBA, not named LeBron James, Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett, Dwight. Not you can't name the good ones. There's got to be a whole list of ones who didn't succeed. Sure, but
Sebastian Telfair.
Sure, but I want to see the list and how many of those succeeded and how many of those really didn't do well in the NBA. And I also would want to hear from those guys. Do you think your career would have changed had you gone to college?
Well, and I think those guys still have the option to go to college. You're not forcing them. Mm-hmm. That's the problem with those kids, though, when they tell them you're going pro and they misread their draft stock. That's where it gets kind of tricky.
Well, and that's where if you don't hire an agent, you can go back, right? But if you do hire an agent,
now you can go back. You can evaluate and see what happens, and you're allowed to. Well, I don't know how it works with high school kids though, because I know the college kids.
Oh, well, I mean, the rule is you have to go to college, right? Unless you're one of the ball members.
I don't know how they do it with the high school kids, because the college kids, they have a chance to see their draft stock, and then they have a chance to pull out. They can declare, then they pull out by an X date or whatever. So
yeah, I don't know. I think it's a complicated answer, though.
I think that there's a lot of back channel stuff that goes on, I think, with high school stuff. If we were to take away the one and done, that's where you start getting, like, for example, I know, like, shoe representatives are a pretty big marker in that, where you just have people that are just like, hey, I'm hearing from the grapevine that, like, this professional team's looking at you if you just want to skip and go pro. Yeah, I don't know necessarily what the full solution would be, but I wouldn't mind doing away with some of the archaic restrictions that NCAA puts on it. Declare for the draft if you want to. If you get drafted at a spot that you don't like, in baseball, you're allowed to go back to college. If you're drafted out of high school, you're allowed to go to college and re-enter the draft. Why not let basketball players do the same thing where it's like, hey, I have a scholarship waiting for me at, program X that I'll go to if I don't get drafted in a high enough spot. I think a lot of that hinges on the NCAA doesn't want to give players too much agency, which is really a shame considering that they're literally the product. I think that'd be a great way because, I think part of what, goes into players going pro out of high school, I mean, I think Jermaine O'Neal, I think he went straight from high school, and for him it was purely financial when he went to the pros, and he struggled for 4 or 5 years in Portland before he went to the Pacers. Well, he struggled at first, in Portland. Then when he went to the Pacers is where he got really, really good. That's where he developed into being a really good player. And yeah, it's a massive, massive struggle. I remember reading a piece, gosh, it was years and years and years ago, maybe even in a Sports Illustrated Kids edition when I got that growing up. I think that's where I read this interview. And like he talked about how much of a struggle it was going from living at home to now being a backup to Rasheed Wallace up in Portland, completely other side of the country from where he grew up. Definitely a challenge, but I think players, having people who have gone before, you can have a lot better mentorship. You can have a lot better resources in place to help you going straight from high school to college, or from high school to the pros, rather. So I think that'd be fascinating.
One thing that I like about it, though, is you have the choice. I don't know if you remember Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony certainly could have gone pro out of high school. He played 1 year at Syracuse.
Won the title.
Won the title, and it was a good experience for him. I'm not saying you necessarily every high school kid is going to go to the pro, but I think that it's gonna encourage staying in college a little bit longer for those that choose to do it, and for those who are ready to go to the pros right now, it's going to encourage them. I mean, it's not a perfect system, but I think there's a lot of choices, and I believe it's right to have the freedom of choice, and I think it's going to help both games a little bit. There's going to be instances where it hurts. I mean, it's not a, given thing, but, as we talk about this statement of the week, something bold, something that I think we need to do, and that's kind of what I'm thinking there. I think it'd be good for the college and the pro game.
Absolutely.
It's funny you bring up Rasheed Wallace, and of course, 5 days ago was the, 15th or 16th anniversary of the Malice at the Palace?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
Ron Artest was a part of it. That was before it became Metta World Peace. He was still Ron Artest at the time.
Yeah, but I know Rasheed was on that Pistons team. So it just brought me to it. And I remember watching that live. It was on ESPN. Oh, yeah, it was on ESPN.
It was incredible. Yeah.
Anyway.
Good times. Good times. Good show, guys. Good show.
I guess good times. It changed times, but yes.
Yeah, exciting times.
Anyway, good show.
Hopefully next week Drew's back. He doesn't go on another bye week. We'll see.
I think I'll be back.
Wonderful. Well, that'll do it for Salute Your Sports Week 7. We'll be back next week for Week 8. Have a nice day, everyone.